Hold. Walter Briggs spent most mornings alone behind Lincoln Middle School, long before students arrived. At 68, the quiet janitor had become almost invisible to people passing through the hallways, the man who unlocked doors before sunrise, fixed broken lockers, swept muddy floors after football games, and ate breakfast beside the maintenance shed while the rest of the world hurried past him. Every morning during winter, Walter carried half of his sandwich outside to the same spot near the dumpsters behind the gymnasium, because he knew a stray German shepherd would eventually appear from the tree line. The dog never barked, never came close enough to touch, and never fully trusted anyone. But hunger slowly created an unspoken friendship between them. Day after day, the shepherd appeared at sunrise, ate quietly from a distance, then disappeared again before students filled the schoolyard. Walter figured the animal was just another abandoned dog trying to survive cold Ohio nights, until one snowy Thursday morning changed everything. The shepherd arrived limping badly through fresh snow, but this time something hung around his neck, a worn leather collar partially hidden beneath dirty fur. Walter frowned immediately because the dog had never worn a collar before. Curious, he slowly crouched beside him and brushed away the snow covering the faded military tags attached to the strap. The second Walter read the engraving, the color drained from his face. K9 Meissen, U.S. Military Working Dog Division. His hands started trembling instantly because he recognized the name from an old newspaper article years earlier about a military K9 that disappeared overseas after an ambush involving multiple American soldiers. Official reports claimed the dog died during extraction somewhere in Afghanistan nearly a decade ago. But Meissen was alive, scarred, older, and somehow sitting beside a middle school dumpster eating pieces of a janitor's breakfast sandwich. Before Walter could process the shock fully, the shepherd suddenly stopped eating and stared toward the football field behind the school. Every muscle in the old dog's body tightened. Then came the low growl. Deep, dangerous, the kind trained military dogs make only when they recognize a threat. Walter slowly turned toward the road beyond the practice field and felt his stomach tighten. A black SUV sat motionless near the edge of the woods, watching the school through falling snow. The moment the dog saw it, his entire posture changed from exhausted stray-toe combat animal. And for the first time since Walter met him, the old shepherd moved directly in front of the janitor like he was preparing to protect him from something coming out of the trees. Walter tried convincing himself. The black SUV was nothing important. Maybe a parent waiting for school traffic to clear or maintenance workers checking road conditions after the storm, but deep down he already knew that wasn't true. The old German shepherd never took his eyes off the vehicle, standing rigid in front of Walter, with low growls rolling from his chest. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the SUV slowly pulled away and disappeared behind the tree line. The dog relaxed only slightly afterward, but Walter noticed something that unsettled him even more. The shepherd kept glancing toward the woods every few seconds, like he expected the vehicle to come back. All day long, the janitor couldn't stop thinking about the military tags hanging from the dog's collar. During lunch break, he searched the name K9 Meissen on an old computer inside the school office and found only fragments of information buried beneath military archive pages. Missing during a classified overseas operation. Presumed dead after enemy ambush. Handler killed in action. No recovery confirmed. The details felt intentionally hidden, which made Walter's stomach tighten harder the longer he read. That afternoon, after most students left for the day, 13-year-old Eli Turner quietly approached Walter near the maintenance shed, carrying a bag of cafeteria leftovers. The boy had been secretly watching Walter feed the shepherd for weeks through classroom windows, mostly because Eli recognized things other kids missed. His late father had worked with military dogs overseas before dying from cancer years later, and from the first moment Eli saw the stray shepherd, he knew the dog wasn't ordinary. "He's trained," the boy said softly while placing food beside the animal. Walter looked surprised. "How can you tell?" Eli shrugged lightly. "The way he watches exits, the way he scans movement." The old janitor glanced toward Mason again and realized the child was right. Even while eating, the dog constantly monitored the surroundings like a soldier still waiting for danger. Then Eli noticed the military tags hanging from the collar and went completely silent. "That's a real K9 tag," he whispered. Walter nodded slowly before telling him about the SUV, watching the school earlier that morning. The second he mentioned it, Mason suddenly lifted his head again toward the football field and growled low beneath his breath. Both Walter and Eli turned instantly. The same black SUV had returned, this time parked closer to the school fence, and standing beside it, partially hidden beneath the falling snow, was a man holding a photograph in his hand while staring directly toward the dog. Walter felt the cold move through his chest the second the man stepped away from the SUV. Something about him didn't feel right. Late 40s maybe, dark coat, military posture, the kind of face that stayed too calm while being watched. Beside Walter, Mason immediately moved closer to Eli instead of backing away, positioning himself protectively between the boy and the fence while low growls continued rumbling from deep inside his chest. The man stopped several yards away from them and slowly raised the photograph he'd been holding. Even from a distance, Walter could see it clearly, a younger version of the same German shepherd standing beside a soldier in desert combat gear. "His name's Mason," the stranger said quietly, "and he disappeared 9 years ago." Eli tightened slightly beside the dog. "Who are you?" The man hesitated before answering. "Captain Dean Rollins. I served with Mason's handler overseas." Mason's reaction changed instantly after hearing the voice. The old shepherd stopped growling, but he didn't relax either. He simply stared at the man with intense focus, almost like recognition mixed with distrust. Walter studied the stranger carefully. "If you know this dog, then why's he been living in the woods, behind a middle school?" For several seconds, the man didn't answer. Snow drifted softly through the silence while students' buses disappeared from the parking lot one by one. Finally, Rollins lowered his eyes and spoke the truth slowly. Years earlier, Mason and his handler were attached to a classified military patrol overseas that uncovered illegal weapons movement connected to private contractors working beside American forces. According to Rollins, Mason's handler attempted reporting the operation before their convoy was ambushed during extraction. Official reports blamed enemy fighters, but several soldiers privately believed the attack was arranged to silence everyone involved. Mason survived the explosion. His handler didn't, and afterward, the military dog disappeared before recovery teams arrived. "We thought he died out there," Rollins admitted quietly while looking toward the shepherd, until someone reported sightings of an old German shepherd near this town 2 months ago. Walter frowned immediately. "Then why does the dog react like he's afraid of you?" The question hung heavily in the cold air. Rollins slowly looked toward the black SUV parked near the road before answering in a lower voice. "Because not everybody searching for Mason wants to save him." The meaning hit Walter instantly. The SUV, the surveillance, the fear in the dog's behavior every time certain vehicles appeared nearby. Mason wasn't hiding randomly. He'd been surviving quietly for years because somewhere inside that old military dog remained evidence connected to people powerful enough to bury an entire operation. Then Eli suddenly noticed something hanging beneath Mason's collar, hidden under thick fur. A small waterproof capsule, attached beside the military tags. Rollins saw it too and went pale immediately. "Oh God," he whispered. Walter carefully removed the capsule, while Mason stayed perfectly still beside him. Inside rested a tiny damaged memory card wrapped in plastic. Rollins stared at it like he'd just seen a ghost. "That's why they're hunting him," he said quietly. His handler hid operational files on Mason before the ambush. The old janitor looked down at the scarred shepherd standing in the snow and finally understood the heartbreaking truth. For 9 years, this dog hadn't just been surviving alone in the woods. He'd been guarding the final piece of the soldier who never came home. Before anyone could speak again, headlights suddenly appeared beyond the school entrance. 2 more black SUVs turned into the parking lot fast. Mason reacted instantly, stepping protectively in front of Eli, while barking violently for the first time since Walter met him. Rollins cursed under his breath. "They found us." But before panic could fully take over, something unexpected happened. School buses still loading students near the front entrance blocked the parking lane completely, trapping the SUVs behind a line of traffic and dozens of witnesses. Teachers stepped outside. Parents looked around in confusion. Too many people. Too public. The men inside the vehicles hesitated. Rollins looked toward Walter urgently. "Take the dog and go, now." Walter didn't ask questions. He grabbed Eli's arm while Mason moved beside them immediately, guiding both toward the maintenance gate behind the football field. Snow covered their footprints within seconds as the sounds of shouting faded behind them. Nearly 6 months later, federal investigations tied to the recovered memory card exploded across national headlines. Multiple private contractors faced criminal charges connected to illegal overseas weapons operations buried for nearly a decade. But inside Lincoln Middle School, students remembered the story differently. To them, it wasn't about military conspiracies or classified files. It was about the old stray dog who trusted a lonely janitor enough to finally stop running. Mason never returned to the woods after that winter. Walter officially adopted the aging shepherd shortly before retiring from the school, and every morning afterward, students still saw the old military dog laying peacefully near the front office doors while children rubbed his ears on their way to class. And on difficult days, when Walter sometimes sat quietly, staring into space, remembering how close danger came to their little school, Mason always rested his head against the janitor's knee exactly like he understood something. Humans often forget. Sometimes the ones carrying the heaviest scars are simply waiting for one safe place to finally come home.